Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to day 2 of our Breathing Week challenge. Let's just start with where we are. Notice your physical body, your mood, your energy, thoughts in your mind, what's going on in your body right now, and in your experience right now. It's really helpful to look at all of the different elements, but also the whole of our experience. When you think about how you're experiencing this moment, there are definitely some physical components. We're going to work with some grounding and orienting practices. There's thoughts in the mind. Am I in my usual environment? Is there something different about my environment? All of those things have such a big impact on our nervous system. Tune into that. How are you arriving? And how does that feel in your body? So sometimes people feel uncomfortable paying attention to the sensations in the stomach area and to the movement of the body with the breath. That's one of the things that we're going to work around a little bit today. There's a few things that will help with that, and one of them is to bring our attention to something else. There are a lot of different ways that we can do a practice, and a lot of different ways that we can focus our mind. Please feel free as we're doing these practices that if I'm suggesting something that doesn't really feel like that's what you want to do something else. Adjust what you're doing. One of the ways that we can do that is to tune into our feet and our seat. Notice as you're tuning into your body that you're sitting on something or standing on something or lying down on something, that there's some part of our body, usually at the bottom or the back of the body, the bottom of the feet or the back of the body, that we can tune into and notice, I'm actually supported here. Notice that for you. What parts of your body are in contact with a chair, the floor, outside, the ground, if you're outside. And then let yourself settle into that support. We don't always have to do that. Instead, if we're feeling like I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, I'm feeling restless, you could get up and move around, you could stretch. And another way to work with that restlessness is to settle down and settle into the heaviness and the support. We could let our shoulders get heavy, and that will help to release that way they inch up towards our ears. You can move your body around a little bit too. Your head, your neck, look around. Yesterday we worked with cues of safety. It's always helpful to just check out the environment you're in. And in our conscious mind, we know that the environment we're in is safe enough, or we wouldn't be here doing a practice. And the way that we experience that through our mind, our nervous system, is that it doesn't really talk in words. When our nervous system doesn't listen to our words, hey, you're safe, get over it, don't worry about it, then we need to give it non-word cues. Visual cues are one, we can look around. Touch is another, we did the hand holding yesterday. But also, so is really settling in. I've got support here. It's raining here, but I'm not wet from the rain. I'm settled into a dry environment. It would be a different experience if I had to do this outside. And I have a chair that's not going to fall apart. What's your environment? And can you rely on that a little bit more? Let your body settle and be supported. And now let's work with a couple of breathing exercises. One of them is cyclic sighing, which is new medical research, Western medical science research, where they looked at different types of meditation, breathing, box breathing, relaxations, and they found that cyclic sighing has the most beneficial effect on regulating our nervous system, allowing ourselves to come back into calm. What it is, it's a deep double inhale through the nose so that the lungs are pretty full. And then a long, slow exhale through the mouth, like you're breathing out through a thin straw. And when we breathe out, like with pursed lips like that, it gives us a lot longer of an exhalation without any air scarcity. That's what I find anyway. Let's do that for a few minutes. The research is the Huberman Lab, Andrew Huberman, and at Stanford University in the United States. Inhale through the nose. Again. Long exhale through the mouth. If your mind is really worrying about something, you could count the exhale if you want. Otherwise, just let yourself breathe out and soften your body as you're breathing out. Deep double inhale. Really let your body soften as you finish your exhale. Big double inhale, long, slow exhale. And as you're letting go of tension in your body, let go of tension in your mind as well. Let your thoughts be focused on the practice. Double inhale. You could work with specific parts of your body as you're breathing out. Start to really soften through the forehead, eyebrows, and eyes. Do that for a few breaths. Your mouth and jaw. Let your tongue rest on the floor of your mouth. And another few exhales, release through your neck and shoulders, muscles of your upper back. Study at Stanford University, they were working with 5 minutes. So my experience with cyclic sighing is that you can get a really good reset with a minute or two, but there's something that deepens as you go into a little bit longer as well. So let's do it a little bit longer. Deep double inhales. As you're breathing out, feel your feet, your seat, let your body settle into the support. And then when you're finished your next out breath, and no rush, take your time. Let's go back into the even, continuous breathing that we were working with in day 1 yesterday. Ideally, our breath is continuous, diaphragmatic through the nose, about the same length on the inhale as the exhale. That would be the breathing pattern that's the healthiest all the time. And then sometimes we'll do a breathing practice to increase strength and resilience in our nervous system. And sometimes we'll do an intervention practice, like if we're feeling really panicky or if we just notice that we're on edge. We don't have to be too extreme in order to benefit from an intervention practice or a reset practice, like cyclic sighing. So sometimes people will ask, why the continuity of the breath? That's something that as you're working with this even breath, let's settle into that for a moment, and then I'll answer that question. When you're noticing your breath, you could be keeping track of it in your nostrils if you want. Notice if you're breathing in, for instance, for 3 seconds. Could you breathe out for 3 seconds? Approximately. It doesn't have to be exact. And what happens when you get to the end of the exhale? Do you have a turnaround or a pause, or is it like a holding on or holding the breath? At some point, we've exhaled enough and we need some oxygen, so we breathe in. What happens when you finish your breath in? What happens when you get to the end of your inhale? Is there just a transition, like there's a turnaround, or is it that you're holding on to the breath? It's the holding that's caused from long experience with feeling tense and tight and trauma, fear. That's the problem, partly because it's a habit that we get going. And then even though we're not in any danger anymore or in the moment, we have that habit of holding the breath. So we're always signaling danger to our nervous system. And the continuity of the breath or changing that habit of holding our breath will signal safety. There's also some physical reasons for that. The heart itself is a muscle. It does better without the holding of the breath. It's a bit hard on the heart muscle. And so we want to honor the physical qualities of the heart as well. But when you're looking at your breath and when we're working with our breath, not to get too aggressive with ourselves, especially when we're changing a habit. If we're changing a habit and we're noticing, okay, I have a little bit of a pause at the end of the inhale or the exhale or both, And when I turn my attention to it, it doesn't feel like it's alarming or anything. It feels like it's okay. Then you might just leave it at that, or you might experiment with a little bit more awareness in the transition points. So it's not that we have to jump into something that, even if the research says this, so it's pretty obvious if we're holding our breath. That's something that we could just go, okay, that's not healthy. I can see that it's alarming. I know from years of practice that this isn't helpful. I'm going to work with that. I'm going to really keep my attention on the continuity of the breath for a while. Or if we notice that we're breathing in the chest or we have rapid or shallow breath, okay, I get it. That's not healthy. How am I going to work with that? I'm going to do some of these breathing practices. And then the rest of it is more of a nuanced thing. Our body knows how to breathe. Our body will naturally breathe diaphragmatic, smooth, even, continuous, unless there's some tension in the body over the years that's contributed to a different kind of a pattern. A lot of what we're doing with the breath is we're getting out of the way. We're letting our body take over again. One of the ways to work with the pause in the breath or that continuity in the breath is to really watch and see what happens when we're not deliberately changing something. Notice that again. I'm sure you've been doing that already as I've been talking. But what happens when you get to the end of the exhalation? The breath is an autonomic process we don't control. We don't have to remember to breathe. It does that on its own. And when we've had enough inhale, we don't just keep going with that. The breath turns itself around and gets into the exhale. Let's just notice that for a moment more. Now, let's work a little bit more with the extended exhale. One of the things that the research has shown is that it takes about 6 seconds of an exhalation to stimulate or activate the relaxation response in the body. When we're breathing in 2 seconds, out 2 seconds, our body never really has a chance to relax. One of the ways that we can work with that is through cyclic sighing or one of those long exhale practices. And there's a simpler one that we often do as well. It's called 2-to-1 breathing, which means the exhalation is up to twice as long as the inhalation. We start that by noticing the length of the inhalation. As you're breathing in, notice how many seconds it takes you to breathe in. And then see about making the exhalation about the same for a couple breaths, and then we'll start to extend the exhale. This is both through the nose, but it's not that long exhalation through the mouth. Relax your face, relax your body. And if you're breathing into a count of 3, whatever it is for you, if it's 2 or 5 or 6 or whatever, just see if you can start to extend the exhalation a little bit longer, up to twice as long. If you're breathing into 3, you could breathe out to 5 or 6. No pauses in the breath. That smooth continuity. When you finish the exhalation and your belly's getting soft, before you get out of air, then bring it into the inhalation. And then when you finish your inhalation, go right into the exhalation. And let the exhalation be a bit longer. This does a few things. One is that it can activate the relaxation response, but another is that it helps us to release some of the carbon dioxide out of the lungs and out of our blood, so that that's good for us too. We have more room for the oxygen as it comes in. Let's do this for a few minutes. Exhale, letting it be longer. Inhale. Just let that ease be the priority though. So we're not trying to get to 6 seconds. If we do, that's fine. If we have a habit over many years, especially of short, shallow breath, especially up in the chest, it could take a month or 2 of working with the breath to develop this kind of a good habit with the breath, this healthier breathing. Inhale to whatever count it is, exhale up to twice as long, and let your breath be at ease. And when we're out in the world, we can also work with this 6-second exhalation. You could simply do this practice. Nobody's going to notice what you're doing if you're exhaling twice as long as you're inhaling. But also, if you're in a social situation, that's often when we feel some anxiety or we want to calm ourselves. You could speak in longer sentences or don't take an in breath between sentences. Let your exhalation be longer. And instead of taking those quick sips of air, see if you could breathe in a regular kind of a breath and then exhale and speak again. I found that one to be so helpful, just to talk in longer sentences. It helps to calm us, it helps to calm whoever we're talking to. There's a lot more ease in our experience when we are able to have that 6-second exhalation. There's many other ways we can do that. Singing, chanting, playing a wind instrument. There's a lot of different ways that we can have this longer exhalation, or we can also just do a breathing practice. For the next couple of minutes now, before we finish this practice, let's go into the joyful breath, alternate nostril breathing. We're just going to do a really simple one again today. So notice as you're breathing in, which nostril has more airflow, and let your breath come back to an even length. Exhale and inhale now. And you can bring your hand up if you want, ring finger and thumb. Breathe in through one nostril, breathe in through the other, and whichever has the most airflow is the active nostril. Breathe through the active nostril for a bit. Exhale, close off your passive nostril, and breathe just through your active nostril. Notice the sensations in the nostril. Take your time. Change now to the passive nostril. Exhale and inhale through the passive nostril. And if you're congested, you could leave the other one open a little bit. Let your attention be in the passive nostril. Next exhale, switch back to the active nostril, exhaling and inhaling through the active nostril. Next exhale, change again to the passive nostril. Let your mind be really focused just on this flow of breath. When you're working with the passive nostril, if you don't get enough air in that one, just leave the other one open a little bit, but keep your attention on the passive nostril. And back to the active nostril. And you can also just do this in your mind. You don't have to use your fingers. You can just follow the flow in one nostril and then in the other nostril. This is a physical and an energetic practice. And then back to the passive nostril, following that flow in the passive nostril for a couple of breaths. And then bring your hand down and follow the flow in both nostrils for a moment. And then notice your whole body from head to toes and your whole experience now. What does it feel like to be you now in this moment after the practice that we've just done? What's going on in your mind? Is it more settled? Is it still wandering around? These witnessing practices that we do, these self awareness practices, It's really important not to get too aggressive around, I need to do this, I need to have exactly twice as long, or I need to whatever. It's really an awareness practice for the most part. And then it's a taking away of all of the habits that are in the way of healthy breathing. Our body likes to breathe diaphragmatic, smooth. Our body likes to be relaxed. We're helping our body to come back into that.